Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Functional Firefighter Framework podcast. As you guys can see, we have our first in-studio guest. Everyone, this is Randy Anderson. Thank you very much for joining us today, Randy. We extremely, really much appreciate you coming in and sharing your story and really diving into what grit is. So in this episode, we're going to be discussing grit, its importance, how it's developed, and how sometimes it could be used against you. So if you want to give us a little intro of yourself, a little history, a little backstory.
Yeah, Randy Anderson, 20 year. I got hired in 2004, I think it was. So almost 20-year veteran in the fire service. I was an explorer for 4 years prior to that. I grew up in the fire service. About 5 years into my career, I was, being an explorer for so long, I kind of had an idea of what firefighting was. I knew what the job was, and then I was at a busy station. I was at Station 1 for a long time. I got to do the job. I got to go on fires all the time. I got to experience what it was to be a real fireman. Then I got kind of stagnant after about 5 years, and I wanted to challenge myself again. I kind of recognized that I wasn't really motivated the way I had been when I was an explorer and a rookie. And so I decided to follow a dream of mine that nobody really knew I had, but it was something that I always had inside me. I wanted to either be a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret. Like that was just something I thought would be the coolest thing to do. And I started looking into it and finding out how I could make it work, and found out I could actually do it and keep my job on the fire department. So I pursued it, made it. Took about 4 years to get through all the training, became a Green Beret. And yeah, I did both for 8 years. I stayed as a Special Forces soldier in the Army, and then would come back from deployments or training and pick up firefighting and go back and forth. So it was tough, challenging to do both, but I loved every minute of it. And I got to kind of pursue two different dreams, which not a lot of people get the opportunity to do. So I was grateful to be able to do that.
Yeah, sure.
That's awesome, because that's like being the ultimate man, right?
In my mind, it was
for real,
for
though,
sure.
Right? Like there's not a lot of people that get to do both,
right,
at the same time,
right. I had kind of like going through my addiction experience. I had kind of like an ego death, I would call it, where those things didn't mean as much to me as far as the perspective of what other people thought. Which when I did it, that was a big part of it. Like I want people to look up to me. I want to be this guy. But I think the benefit of going through the addiction stuff was that I actually look back and say, you know what, I can appreciate it now for me, not what other people thought of me. Like I did it because it was something in my heart that drove me to that, you know? Yeah.
Well, let's I guess let's get into that. Like what happened? Like what kind of led to the addiction?
Okay. Yeah. So man, that's a tricky one, because it's not a straight line, at least for me. I know for some people you'll hear stories, and I watch a lot of stuff on addiction now, especially because once you're an addict, right? That's the mentality of it. That's what they teach you in treatment. But looking at it from, let's see, how do I say it? It's for me, it wasn't like some people can take a drug and they're addicted, right? They try a drug and they're an addict, and that's the path they go down. For me, it was very different. I grew up kind of a difficult childhood. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I had a younger sister. We moved here to Vegas after my dad was hurt. He was a contractor, had a construction company. He was hurt on the job, where they told him he would never walk again. He was paralyzed basically. And he lost everything. And we went from having like boats and cars and nice house up to the time I was like 10 years old back east, to living in an apartment in Vegas and having nothing and being poor, like trying to figure out how we're going to survive. And in that time, my parents got divorced, and me and my sister stayed with my mom, and we went through some really difficult times. My mom struggled with addiction too. And I mean, it got to the point where it was so rough for us, we were actually stealing food from grocery stores to eat. And it's I don't want to, my family's amazing. My mom went through her stuff. I've gone through my stuff. So it's not a judgment thing, but Kind of going through that experience, I really got discouraged with just life, because I had this amazing childhood and it kind of fell apart. And then I was like trying to take care of my sister and myself, and I just got frustrated. When my dad came back in the picture and kind of took over, I just went and like kind of leaned on all my friends, which were shitheads. I was doing experimenting with drugs, all this stuff as I think I was like 13, 14 at the time. Right. And, I became a car thief. I was stealing cars. Like this is the path I went down. I got in a high-speed chase with the cops in a stolen car and got arrested. And when I went to court, the judge looked at my record and he saw I was like a straight A student at one point, and then things fell off, and he timed that up with the divorce. Really intuitive guy. And he's like, I think this kid just had a tough situation hit him and he didn't know how to deal with it. And so he put me in a program like probation, where I went to Golden Gloves, the boxing facility here in Vegas. And I was just sweeping up and doing chores and shit like that. And eventually they saw that I was there every day. And one of the head boxing, he was a referee, Joe Cortez. And he saw me in there every day, and he's like, do you want to learn how to box? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And he started training me. I was training with Layla Ali was in there all the time. Archie Moore's daughter was in there all the time. I was like meeting Mike Tyson was in there a lot. I was getting to meet these people and training in the gym that they're training in, you know? And that kind of shifted my mentality from wanting to be a fuck up to like, maybe there's something more I can do, right, with life. And that transitioned into learning about fire explorers. I was about 16 at that time and got into explorers, and that really just drove me into a different path, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just coming, now that we're out of it and going through what you went through, and still in the things you experienced in the station, and having to, however long that was, which none of us really know.
Right.
What would have been more, what resources could the fire service had provided to you? Or what could we have done better on our end?
Right. So the first thing I want to say about that is, like, I want to talk about this stuff in a way that it's going to help people, but I also want to make sure that I'm not like diminishing my personal responsibility for it. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the primary thing. Like, I take full personal responsibility. Like, I allowed this to happen to myself. Right. And you asked the question, like, how did this addiction happen? And that's kind of why I brought up the story of my childhood. With my relationship with drugs was recreational, you know, and even as a fireman, like, there we'd be at parties, we do things. Some guys party a little harder, some guys, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing in special ops. You know, some guys go pretty hard. They're the kind of guys that are willing to go and fucking run into a burning building or run to a gunfight are also the kind of guys that are willing to do a fucking line of blow off the table. Like, that's a common thing that I've seen in the world of these two types of people, you know, that they're hard chargers, but they're also, you know, susceptible to these other types of I don't know what to call them.
Stimuli,
yeah, or just distractions, whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think as far as the addiction stuff, and what I really want to kind of get across with that is, it's not one domino that falls and now you're an addict. It's not like I woke up one day and I'm a heroin addict. No, it took a lot of fucked up things to happen. A lot of different things had to fall out of place before it was like, oh, now here's where I'm at, right? I got put on Oxycontin after my last deployment and never took them. I was getting prescribed them all the time, but I would take them for the pain because I was in a lot of pain. I'd take them for the pain sometimes, but I didn't really give a shit about them. And then when I went through a divorce and was dealing with the thoughts I had, and just the PTSD started really kicking in for me when I was going through a lot of other trauma. It's like they compound, right? Then those pills became a way for me to feel better. They became a way for me to feel like I want to get out of bed. I was feeling depressed, which is something I'm not used to. I'm a happy dude. Mm-hmm. I'm a motivated guy. I didn't want to go to the gym anymore. That was really the last domino that fell for me, was not wanting to work out. Once that was gone, I was off to the races, right? Like, so, and then looking at coming back from that, one of the first things that came back was, I want to work out again. I want to feel better. So for people that are going through this, dude, like as far as addiction, especially with our community, it's a slow burn. It at least for me, it crept up where, oh, I'm just taking my medication as prescribed. And then it was like, well, this isn't enough to make me feel the same. I had a bunch of extra because I never took it. So I would double up the dose, right? And before you knew it, my oxycodone habit was a $300 a day habit. I was working overtime just to fucking not feel sick. Oh. Yeah. But the department, the first time I reached out for help is when it got really bad. I was running out of money because obviously, and I reached out for help. I forget who I reached out to at the time, our CISD person at the time. And they put me in a 30-day rehab program, which is great. Like, I didn't know what help I needed. I just knew something was fucked up. Mm-hmm. And they sent me to this program. It was a 30-day detox, and then bam, I'm back out. And for some people that works, but not for most, right? Mm-hmm. The statistics on a 30-day rehab program is, I think it's 80% to 90% relapse rate on that. And I'm a hardcore opiate addict, right, at the time. So that's even a harder thing. Like, some people are just drinking, and I'm not saying one's worse than the other, mm-hmm. but opiates are notoriously hard on the brain for mm-hmm. recovery. So, I went through that 30-day detox. Within 2 weeks of being back, I relapsed. And if I was going to say why that happened, I think it's most likely because they didn't give me the tools. And that amount of time, you really can't develop the tools to learn how to not feel this way. You're not going through the psychotherapy. Because what is addiction? It's a symptom of a mental problem, right? And so in 30 days, you're not treating that real symptom or you're not treating that real problem that's causing the symptom of addiction. So where I think things could have been different, and on my second time, when things really got bad, I got arrested at work. Well, I got arrested for having drug paraphernalia at work. And that really, I was sat in jail for 2 days. I remember sitting before I went into the courtroom, and I was praying, and I said, man, I can't believe I let it get to this point. And I said a prayer and said, if I get another chance, I'm not gonna fuck this up. And the DA lady came out to talk to me, and she says, well, you have 3 felonies here for the drugs that you had in your bag, and you're looking at some serious time for that. 3 felonies, big deal, and a gross misdemeanor, I think. And I was like, well, what are the chances if I go into treatment and I do all these things that it'll get dropped? She's like, there's no chance of that. Like, this is serious stuff. And, you've already been through a treatment program. Like, they had all this history on me. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess this is the cost of my mistakes, right? And I said that prayer, I went into court, and the DA dropped all the charges right there. And I was like, this is my second chance. I'm not going to fuck this up. And I went into treatment this time, which was a program that was designed for military and first responders. And I went into this program with a whole different mentality. It was like desperation that I'm going to die from this. This is killing me. This is ruining my life. It's probably cost me my career. It's cost me my family. I went in with the mentality like, whatever I need to do. They were having me do yoga, meditate. I'm a fucking warrior, bro. I'm a firefighter. Like, I don't meditate. I don't do these breathing exercises, but I was so desperate for help that I was willing to embrace whatever they gave me. So I'm in there doing fucking yoga poses every morning. I'm in there doing the meditation. I'm going to float tanks. I'm doing extra shit. I'm watching these videos, taking notes. The fucking, the lead counselor would come in at night. We're in the houses. We're like rehab houses, sober living. And they're coming in there, and I'm watching Joe Dispenza videos, like learning about mindfulness and taking notes. And they're like, this dude is fucking on point. Like, he's serious. And I think, I'm sorry, it's a long, long deal, but to get to the point that what we need to do as a department, we need to figure out a way to get people to see that someone that was as broken as I was, and I'm kind of an extreme case because I have trauma from the military, trauma from life, which everybody has all this shit, and trauma from the fire department for 20 years being at busy houses, right? So I think that's kind of an extreme case where it's like, this is as fucked up as somebody can be. Can we fix them? And if you get him in the right program and he's in the right state of mind, yeah, we can fix him. And, you know, when I went to my disciplinary hearing, I said that to the chief. I'm like, look, if you let me come back to work, let me be an example to the guys that no matter how broken we are, we can be fixed, you know, and let me show that because I'm better. You know, I feel different. Every day of life is different for me. I wake up and smell the fucking grass and I'm tasting my food. This is something in my addiction that didn't happen. You know, sorry, I'm rambling, Nick.
No,
you got to rein me in, bro.
No,
Absolutely,
this
man.
is,
This is solid. So, like, was the treatment on the second time?
Yeah.
That was. How is it different? Like,
Right.
I know you said it was firefighter, warrior,
First responder. There was
trauma.
rangers and there was special ops guys. There was firemen, police officers. Like,
how is that geared different? You know what I mean? Like, how is it geared?
so this particular program was really focused on like throwing like all the shit at you, right? We were doing EMDR. I was sitting in with brain monitors on, doing meditations and seeing where my fucking brain waves were going. And I'm very science minded. Like I love science. I need to see like where the numbers are to believe in something, right? And so going through this type of understanding of addiction where they're like, oh, well, and we're talking about grit, right? Yeah. So this is something I learned in the program that was kind of different for me and really kind of helped me conceptualize what addiction was for me and what I think it is for a lot of people in our community. And what that is we have this amazing willpower. Like I know my willpower I'll put it up against anybody. I've been through selection. I've been through fucking fire academy. I was valedictorian at my academy. I was fucking #1 graduate soldier of the cycle out of 4,000 people in basic training. I was fucking #2 in the Q course. I always peered 1 or 2 overall. Like I'm a fucking dude that's going out and I'm gonna win. I want to win. I want to beat everybody, you know. And just that mentality, you know, that willpower. I know I have it. That grit, I have it. Whatever that is, wherever that comes from, I've got it, right? Which was really difficult for me going through addiction. Is like, how did this happen to me? Like trying to look at myself and be like, well, how am I here? How did I fall down this hole? Knowing that I can do anything, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking that having that confidence. And what it is, and what I learned about addiction in the program is, you know, when you're going through addiction, once you take that drug or that alcohol, whatever it is that becomes that source for you, and it hijacks your fight or flight, right? Now your willpower is used against you. That same willpower is telling you need this to survive. Like this is what you take that drug or you're going to die. So now that same drive that made you fucking be #1 and all that same drive is driving you to a drug, is driving you to feel, or else you're going to die. Like that's how it feels.
So was the program then more geared for you to perform? Like it put the power in your hands because we all are a bunch of doers, right?
Right.
Like we all are like, I don't want you to tell me what to do.
Right.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, give me the ball. I want to take the shot. You know
it was kind of set up in a way, and it was perfect for me. It was set up in a way where like, you're going to do all these, here's your schedule. You're going to do meditation, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And then you're going to, if you do, at first it's like a detox phase. And then it's kind of, they're really regimented. But excuse me, eventually, once you start doing these things, then you get more and more freedom. So what I noticed is once I got more and more freedom is when I really started to kind of work the program properly. And what I mean is like the first 30-day detox I went to was very regimented because it's the first 30 days, right? Not good for guys like us where they're like, wake up at 8, do this, do that, right? Even in the military, like I hated that part of it. Being in special ops, it's like, yeah, you know what time to be up, you know where to be, you know what shit to have, do it, right? Autonomy,
right?
You know, that's I function well in that type of environment. And I think a lot of our people do, right?
Oh yeah.
So what was good about the program for me that I went through, what really helped me was after you get through that initial phase, which like I said, my desperation carried me through that because I was like, I'm going to fucking die. I'll do whatever I need to do. But after that, they kind of left it up to you. Like, do you still want to do yoga? And I'm like, fuck yeah, it's helping. Yeah. Like my knees never felt better. I thought I was gonna have to have surgery on my fucking knee and I'm doing this yoga shit. And now my knee's feeling better. I'm like, I've been squatting for fucking 20 years, bro. My knee never felt good. Oh, you know, now I'm fucking feels great. Yeah. I'm almost 40 years old and my knees, but yoga did that, you know?
So during that time when you're in the station before everything goes south,
right.
When were you hearing when the people that were concerned about you, your coworkers, whether it be your captains or your firemen,
Dude.
From what I'm hearing is you have to own it. You owned it
You
to
have
go
to
in
own it.
for it to have success. Do you hear them? Is there anything that individuals can say to someone? Is it just like, hey man, I have an open door, or let me help you?
That's so tough. My opinion, where we're getting this wrong is what do we have? We have a guy that's at this position that we're supposed to go to, right? Or you're supposed to go to your captain. I think the way we're handling these problems and what we're seeing happen now, and I kind of mentioned this to people before, like, this is going to get worse. Just because how they handled me, I'm like, this is not the way that's going to help people. Like, I'm fortunate. I'm grateful for the opportunity I had to get help. But a lot of people coming through, like my experience, my option was to resign or be fired, right? After being on the department for 20 years and having, this much, I grew up in this department, this is my life.
Oh, yeah.
To lose that identity. And that was I think that's a kind of a big part I want to touch on too, is we identify so closely with this career, this path, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a firefighter.
Yeah. It's why people have issues retiring. You have
Yeah,
guys that do
big
40
time,
years because they can't, that's who they are.
Yeah.
I am Captain so-and-so, or
Right.
I am, like, this is who I am.
Yeah. So I think that point coming out of this, that was one of the biggest challenges I faced as far as the aftermath. And I think, for people that are looking at getting help, seeing somebody like me get let go, or some of the other situations that we've recently had, it's like, man, do I really want to reach out? Do I really want to get help? Like, look what happened to this guy. He was a good dude. I don't think people feel that that's their option. I don't think people feel like they have an option to go to some, especially if they're in a level of addiction like I was, where they're using a hard drug. Like, I'm not going to go to you, Nick. I look up to you, bro. I'm not going to go to you and be like, hey, dude, I'm using heroin. I'm fucked up. Like, I can't function without this drug, But if people like me who've been through that are around, like, I was a fucking heroin addict. I was an opiate addict, right? And I'm okay now. That's what we need. We need people that have been through it, that are on the other side of it, to be there and say, hey, you can make it through this. Like
if we had somebody, so like with this process, somebody that's separate from administration, that you could go and speak to, right? And be like, hey, and not, because I'm sure it was even hard to tell, even if you're friends with your captain, it's probably hard to be like, hey man, like, this is what I'm going through, right? Yeah. But if we had somebody who obviously had buy-in, that was separate from administration, who could get you to that first responder specific rehab,
just even to talk to, brother.
Yeah.
Like, just to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on. I need to tell somebody. You know how long I kept that fucking secret? Years. I wasn't sleeping at work. I didn't sleep ever at work. All right. 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it was, I was up. And if I did fall asleep, I had nightmares. And ask the guys on my crew. They used to come in with a stick and poke me and shit. Like, oh, he's fucking sleeping and we got to get him up. And like, that's not a fucking life, dude.
Yeah.
That's not living, I was just surviving every day.
What would have, after, let's say after the 3-month rehab,
right?
What would have been an appropriate, like, kind of return to duty? Like, would it have been good to come back to like an administrative function for a couple months before you rotate back into station life?
What I think would be a cool way to set it up, if it was, and this is just my opinion, dude, I don't know shit, right?
Oh no, you've got the best perspective, man, because you've been through this. What would have been, if this is the perfect world and you get to write the division inside the department,
when you go through a treatment program, like, one of the things that, like AA, for example, one of the things they teach you is giving that what you have now you're clean and you're doing it. One of the things you have to do is give that back to other people, and that helps keep you sober, right? So getting to come back, like, you go through this kind of program, you've been through all this shit, getting to come back and say, okay, now you have a different perspective. You've been through addiction. You've been through all this PTE. You have PTSD from the job. You have it from whatever, being able to come back and be in a position where you can help guys. Admin takes you in, say, for example, and now you're on you're in this committee or this, whatever, this space where people can come to you and talk. right? Because, dude, I'm telling you right now, even this happened to me. I get guys calling me being like, bro, how'd you get better? You know?
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's already happened. It happens because they already look at me as one of those people he's on the other side of this. And then we have a lot of people more than you guys think. Or maybe you know, but I'm saying, dude, I know.
Well,
we have a lot of dudes going through the same,
and I'm sure.
Or worse.
Well, and dude, you know, like you were one of our most beloved. Like guys love you, they respect you. You know what I mean?
Thanks,
like
bro.
It hurt all of us. And we talked about this. I think this is going to be good for our members to get some closure because they care about you. You know what I mean? So but then having like maybe you get a little counseling. Or like a little counselor thing after your name, and that could be something because having lived it, like if I'm gonna go get trained by somebody,
right,
like physically, I want them to have gone through or been
there, done that.
Yep. I don't want somebody to guess based off of theory or like education. I want to go talk to like the best of the best, or whoever's been through whatever that I'm seeking advice on. I wanted to talk to them because they've lived it, right? So I mean, like, man, like if somehow we could have like a position where you could, because guys reach out to you, you know what I mean? Because the guys are hurt. You're right.
It's getting worse,
and we get what are they? Was it a toxic handler, right?
Yeah,
we get that. Yeah. We get a lot of phone calls and face to face, like, hey man, what do you think about this? I'm going through this. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'll look around. I don't know what to do.
And that's, I think, an alarming part of just the fire service in general. I think of checking that box of oh, we hired a counselor, or we hired this.
And that's what it feels like.
And it is. Like, and because even if like an EAP program, I don't think there's.
Bro, that's all admins. That's admin perspective.
So right? if you go to any I mean, there might be a few captains that have a little insight on what.
And there are,
but
there are.
For the most part, though, if people come to them and go, "Hey, I got this problem," they're like, I think the EAP program is where. So it just is that
Dude,
training.
That doesn't feel like a comfortable place. When you're like in a dark place, that you're not thinking like, what can admin do for me?
Right.
You're not thinking that way, right? I mean, I might go to a dude that I trust, and that's the kind of shit that happens, right? You go to your brother, you go to your fucking sister, you're like, yo, I'm fucked up. Something's wrong. And I've done that, you know, but the problem is, what's the hardest thing to do in the fire service? Change, right? That's we don't know how to fucking change well. And so we're getting overworked. We're getting more work with less fucking resources, right? Guys we don't know how to recognize the type of PTSD that we have, right? And going through different types of PTSD, having experienced that, big T's, little T's, they call it in treatment, like the big traumas, little traumas. Having gone through different stuff like that, I recognize it now on the other side of it. Like, man, dude, that accumulative effect of seeing dead kids, seeing the fucked up shit we see, whatever it is that affects you. Maybe that doesn't affect you. Maybe this does. The weird shit. Sometimes you go on a call and you're just like, why does this fucking with me? Why am I still thinking about it? Right.
That is so. Quick story on that. Yeah. And I mean, we had talked about this before because he was there. As odd as that might seem, we run a Delta traffic accident together. Guy blows through a light, almost 100 miles an hour, hits a car. I walk right by the patient's head to go set some flares. There's stuff everywhere. I think the guy had run to hide in
he was fortified inside of a Taco Bell with a crowd.
Oh yeah.
Shit. Like,
so they
on his head, you know.
They chase the guy. We come back. I go to flare off the other side because I'm sending everybody into the parking lot. And as I look back at the car, I see my gym sticker logo. It's my mom.
No shit, bro.
So I had walked 2 feet from her head, had no clue, turned around, yelled at him, and went, "Hey, that's my mom." And the whole thing changed. Everything started moving slow motion. She's good now. Everything's fine. Ended up having a bunch of broken bones and a brain bleed and stuff, but she's awesome.
Yeah.
I say that to say that I then get assigned to that same station 3 months later. Tones go off, Delta traffic accident.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be that person.
Bro.
My heart rate skyrocketed.
Right.
And I'm like,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Like, and I'm like, I'm fine. So I'm like trying to go read the notes. Like, let me just see what kind of car it is. And you're like, I never thought that would have been me.
So now listen, dude, that's difficult to talk about, right? Like it's difficult to say like this happened to me and like.
Well, I got lucky because I hate to say lucky in that form, but my captain that day happened to be one of the people on the department that I'm closest with.
Oh, nice.
Made sure that the battalion chief was there. Yeah. We got to the hospital. They didn't hover me. I went out to the rig. Hey, let me make the choice. Do you want to go home? Are you good? Not
that's really good.
So, and I went home, and it just was one of those things where, but have I?
You were gonna go home.
Yeah, okay. Maybe he made me feel like I had the choice, but it was because we were standing at the front of the rig, and it was like, are you going home? And to me, it was
and what is that mentality? Like you think I shouldn't want to go home, like that. That's the fucking part of our job we got to change. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And even then it was, and then follow up with me a week later.
Yeah.
The chief follows up with me.
That's good, bro.
But and is that standard for the fire service?
No.
Was it because it's who he is?
It's because somebody recognized what was happening that had that experience or has an understanding of recognizing what's going on, right? Yeah, we don't have enough of that. And I think that's what worries me. Just like I said with my story, like I suffer the consequences of my decisions. I accept that, but at the same time, I wish I could have had the opportunity to come back and show guys like, hey, I made it through this, and be that example, right? For that purpose, for when somebody else goes through it, dude. Because we have people going through it now, and that will go through it in the future worse than I did. I don't know the answers, but I hope that these kind of conversations, and that's why I was really excited when I saw you guys doing this, is I hope these kind of conversations are going to help. This is where the change is going to come. It's not going to come from admin. It's going to come from guys like us talking about this shit, and guys that we look up to saying these type of things like, hey, what the story you just shared, like, hey, I had a call and I was anxious. Had this feeling. There's other people that are going to relate to that, bro. And that's going to speak to people. Right?
And I kind of hope that we could spitball some like ideas for policy, because unfortunately, like we can kind of push like an idea, right? Like we can be like, hey, like you need to find somebody relatable that you can go talk to, right? Or however you need to deal with this. But then at the end of the day, we do need to have some infrastructure and resources in place, right?
Yes.
Like there needs to be something like, I got a couple bullets from the Air Force's policy. Their members are encouraged to seek help, right? The only caveat is you can't seek help once you're under an investigation. So they want you to be forthcoming with the information. They've got somebody who's separate from your supervisor. Like they obviously have different language, and their rank structure is different than ours, so it's foreign to me. But essentially, they have somebody that's separate from your supervisor or your command staff that you can go and talk to. If it turns out that it's not a addiction, which is I don't know why else you would go say you're addicted to something to somebody, but nobody finds out and gets notified.
Oh, that's cool.
So you go back.
And they know this, right? The guys from the lower position, they understand this is how this works. Okay.
An admission of use and a member seeking help will be granted limited protection. So your job's not, you could fail. I mean, obviously they know that,
that'd be nice.
You know what I mean? Like you're going to be drug tested in the military. And I'm assuming like it was in college. Like I felt like being from Florida, I made every drug test, right? They figured I was like smuggling cocaine or something up to Missouri.
The performance on Saturday determined who got drug tested on Wednesday. that's how it went.
Were drug tests in the military the same? Like drug tests in college was I had to like drop my pants like down to my ankles,
staring at your head,
pull my shirt up, and I'm like, dude, can you turn the faucet on? Like I'm not this comfortable with you looking at me.
I had a guy one time, I couldn't piss because it's the first time some dude's staring at me, and he's like, "Do you want me to sing to you?" I'm like, "No," and he starts singing, and I'm like, "Oh, actually, that's helpful."
Thanks. Can you count down from 5? Yeah. But so it's the same thing, and but now you've offered limited protection because you've said, "Hey, I've got this problem." They recognize that it takes a lifetime, right, to break the addiction.
Sure.
Right. I mean, like,
it's a lifelong struggle. Yeah.
Lifelong struggle. Yep. But you're granted this limited protection because I'm sure they military test fairly regularly.
It depends.
So like
it depends.
Quarterly to yearly.
In the Army, yes. In special ops, it's more like who can pass the drug test.
Okay.
Guys will raise their hand. It's like usually the LDSDs are like, "Yeah, we can." Yeah. We're like, all right, all the LDSDs are getting tested. Like, I mean, that's out, and unfortunately, it's the reality, you know. But yeah, you get randomly tested, and then out of that random batch of tests, they send a certain amount off to be actually tested.
Okay.
So that's how it works. But there's nothing like this.
Yeah, but I mean, like
you fail, you're fucked.
Yeah, so the disclosure cannot be used against a member in any disciplinary fashion.
That's amazing.
And the disclosure is not mandatory. Obviously, you can choose to live with it if you want, but if you're apprehended for something that's deemed illegal, like if you have a DUI or whatever, or caught with drugs on base or whatever, then the disclosure thing's gone. So they're encouraging members to be proactive.
Right.
Like their policy that they've set in place actually encourages people, if they can recognize that, hey, I've got this issue, come forward and talk to us, because we're going to take care of you, because everybody says it. We're the most valuable resource to any organization's most valuable resources is people.
Yeah, that's what we say. I mean, in special ops, they say humans are more important than hardware, right? Yeah. I want to touch on something real quick before you go on. This is important, I think. With our situation, with our department, or with just in general, how I see this happening with, I lost my fucking train of thought. What were you just saying? You were saying they have
policy or infrastructure returned like disclosure.
Okay. For me, like my biggest fear coming and saying I had already gone through treatment and I was on like a last chance deal. There's no fucking way I felt comfortable going to somebody and being like, hey, I'm fucked up again. Right. That is what kept me for years, a couple years, not willing to talk about it and just trying to hide it.
Yeah.
It's because I felt like if I bring this up, I'm fucked. I'm fired.
Right.
That is definitely what kept me from seeking help. The fact that I was on a last chance and I knew if I went and asked anybody, or if the wrong people found out I was using again, I was gone.
And the last chance isn't in our positive discipline system, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
It's frustrating. But so then how would, like I said, like let's just I'd like to retouch on this. If you could, with a broad brush, paint the perfect picture for scenario for your recovery, what would it have looked like? Like from a department resource and infrastructure standpoint, like having somebody, like we've established that having some sort of relatable counselor.
That would be number one.
Separate.
Yes,
obviously.
That would be number one. Because I reached out to a couple people, and I don't want to say names, obviously, but I reached out to a couple guys that I trusted a week before all my shit went down, and was like, hey, I'm fucked up again. So I had already been like, I need to do something. I was already mentally there, ready to get help and ready to, and then all the stuff went down, and it was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, really? Having if I would have had that person to go to, and that person should have some kind of capability to be like, okay, I can take what this guy told me and do something with it without risking him getting in trouble or discipline, right? Like,
I mean, essentially, if they had powers to put somebody on like admin leave, be like, hey,
anything. Yeah.
I'm going to take you offline.
Just knowing there's an option, bro. Yeah. Like in my situation, just knowing I had an option besides like if I tell anybody I'm fired,
right?
You know, just that would have helped.
I mean, like somebody that could take you offline and be like, hey, we're going to get you to this. Recognize that you need maybe a first responder specific rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Right. Like what you went to that worked.
Right.
And then bring you back to the floor and then flood you with kind of the same continuation of rehab, like positive, because you can only focus on positive stuff or negative stuff. Like only like Shaolin monks can focus on nothing. Right. So like we're either going to be like consumed with positive things, and maybe they follow up with you on Friday, Saturday night to make sure you're good. But Monday through Thursday, when you're doing light duty or return to work, you're doing yoga and nutrition and you're doing breathing exercises.
Like the shit I was doing in treatment,
dude. They just focusing you on all that because we're doers,
that would
man.
Be amazing.
We want to take care. I want my life to be in my control. Like, so give me all this this information and all this force, and then before you put me back into that environment where I was in a dark place,
right?
Like, give me as much light as possible and give me as much opportunity to like redirect this ship before. Because like we had an individual that came forward, went to 30-day rehab, and then was kind of thrust right back into the same.
That's the problem. That's what happened to me. I relapsed 2 weeks after rehab, bro.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I was physically off the drug, but mentally I was not off the drug. Right. I mean, that's the difference. It takes at least 90 days. So the recovery program I went to that's specific to first responders, their relapse rate is like less than 10%. They have like a 90% better than 90% rate of people staying clean in that program. Wow. Yeah. And we're talking police officers, firefighters, ambulance fucking workers, even dispatchers were there, you know, and military guys. So what was cool is as I started to embrace the program and it was working for me and they saw that, we started having other like special ops guys come in, other Army dudes, Marines, and they're like, they would come to me and be like, hey, this dude's really struggling. He doesn't want to be here. Will you talk to him? Dude, that gave me some purpose that I can't explain how big that was. To be able to like convince a dude who didn't want to be there to be like, hey man, I'm with you. I've been through this shit too. I get it. It helped me. I'm here. I could sleep at night. I'm not having nightmares anymore. I'm doing these meditations. They're helping me. Yeah. You know, I feel better. Yeah. I'm back in the gym. Something I haven't done for 4 fucking years, right? And being able to share that with people and then that resonate with them and then get better and see that happen. Having, like you're saying, having something where you could come back and be part of the solution, where you're actively involved in helping other people that are going through similar things would be magical because that's what you need. That's what recovery programs do. That's the whole point of them, is to get you to a point where you can help others. And then that purpose is what drives you to stay sober and clean. And
a lot of the stuff both of you just mentioned, it sounds like there's some things that the fire service in general can implement to combat these things. You don't need to be something wrong to do 30 minutes of yoga a day. You don't need there to be something wrong.
I feel great and I do it every day still.
And there's some departments right now that are mandating it across the department where they do it, and whether it's a true yoga session that's like a workout or if it's more of a meditation session.
At least give the guys the knowledge and the option, right? At least give them that.
Give them the choice.
Give them the choice and have it come from a place. Don't have some fucking, and pardon me, don't have some hippie come in and be like, hey, Mr. Green Beret, meditate with me. Yeah. Let's talk about trees. Like that ain't gonna fucking work for a guy like me, bro. Yeah. All right, I'm a barrel-chested freedom fighter. Like, give me something real. You know why I started meditating? There was a ranger in there who was sitting there meditating and shit and fucking holding crystals, and I'm like, and that dude been to fucking OIF-1, fucking Afghanistan. I'm like, all right, bro. This dude's like a legit dude. He's fucking doing pretty good, you know.
That's all about. All right. That's all about relatedness, right? Like,
right.
You could relate to that guy.
I did. That's what we need.
Like, as long, like that's why I think it's powerful. This is going to be powerful because our folks can obviously relate to you. You know what I mean? Opposed to, you know, anybody else, because you've lived the life. You know what those sleepless nights are like. You know what the trauma is. You know what I mean? So. I think the relatedness is a huge piece.
Well, cool. We're now to the part of the episode where we do our clip of the day. We're basically just going to play a quick little, probably 20-second clip, and then you just kind of reflect on it and tell us how it relates to our conversation today.
Sweet.
Have you ever heard the metaphor of the buffalo and the cows?
No, please share.
Buffalo and cows, they can both sense when a storm is coming. Big, terrible rainstorms coming, they both sense it. And cows, they take off running away. Buffalo, they sense the storm and they run right at it. They run right into the storm. And I compare that to trauma. We're just creating a generation of cows where we're making it okay for us. We just let them run away from it and not deal with it. And the cool thing is cows, as they're running away from the storm, they get tired. The storm catches up with the cows and the cows keep running. They don't stop. If they stop, let the storm pass. No, they just run with the storm. Stay in the storm. So they're in this misery and shame and guilt. They're in this way longer than they have to be. The buffalo, they run into the storm and it's terrifying. Once you get past that first initial scare, that fear, and you get in the storm and then the storm passes, then they're happy and they're rested, and then they can enjoy what the storm gave them, the water and the grass and all that stuff.
Well, I think this actually kind of ties back into the topic today for grit. Right?
Absolutely,
because grit is how you respond to adversity, challenges, setbacks, right? And we kind of talked about this a little earlier. Was like all humans are born the same, right? Like we all, I mean, like obviously some humans are tall, some humans are short, whatever.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Yeah, sorry. So it is what it is. I mean, there's some small genetic differences, but we all have same pain receptors, and then it's how we deal with stuff, like how we perceive things, how we respond to things, how we cope with things that really affects like our resiliency, grit, mental toughness. But grit especially is how are we going to act when the storm comes, right? Are you going to, it's funny because he showed me this clip last week and I'm like, man, it's funny. My grandma, she was from the hills, right? Yeah. She's from the hills of Eastern Kentucky, like West Virginia.
Yeah, down in the holler.
Yeah, she lived in a holler. But she always would say every time we'd be driving, if the cows were laying down, she's like, the storm's coming, because they're resting for the run.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's and like you said, like when you hit, and I think about when they're talking about when the buffalo hit the storm, and it's scary. For you, that had to have been like the DA just talked to you and you're going in, right? Bro. Like that was it, man. Yeah. Like, and then as soon as you got through that, it sounded like you made that deal with yourself and you had that upward, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out of this, right? I'm going to run through this storm.
I forget who said it, man. I'm big on like motivational shit, right? And I forget who said it recently. I was watching a video and he's like, I don't negotiate with myself anymore. I stopped doing that. And I was telling my son this the other day. I was like, the minute I stopped doing that, because what do? We wake up in the morning and be like, all right, tomorrow, or the night before, you're like, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning. I'm going to eat breakfast. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do legs. I'm going to fucking, and then you wake up and it's like, oh, it's raining out. I'm not going to do legs it's raining, like you fucking negotiate with yourself. Oh, yeah. And when I kind of heard that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done negotiating with myself. If I set an intention, I'm going to do something, I'm going to fucking do it. And I think what happened when I did that to myself, sitting with that DA and going into court that day, and I was like, this is going to ruin my life. Thinking about like having felonies on your record, I couldn't. This shit I'm doing now, I'm doing medical sales and all this cool shit now. I'm teaching weapons training. I could do any of that with a felony.
Right.
That'd all be gone. I'd be working fucking Walmart, and then nothing against that, but that's what I'd be doing. I'd be trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm getting to do all these things because it played out the way it did. But yeah, I challenged myself in that moment, and I didn't negotiate with myself. I just said, I'm moving forward. That's the grit, right? That's
for sure.
I turned that willpower back against the negative, like I let it took over, and I let it take me down. And then somewhere in there, I found it again and was like, no, this is who I am. And I used it to push myself forward again.
Yeah. And the thing from the clip, I think the takeaway for it is that all of us hit storms.
Yeah.
Whether it's big, small, all of us hit storms.
And they affect people differently, man. You know?
And if it's you're not alone.
Yep.
There isn't, and it's not like everyone's all joyous and peaceful and they don't have to go through anything. Yeah. It's life. Yeah. So just being able to be okay with knowing that it's coming or it's here, and that reaching out and being able to speak to those who have been through it or who have gone through similar things are more than willing to help. That has been the consistent, the constant, if you will, of especially in the fire service. It doesn't matter if a fireman calls you from Ohio and goes, "Hey, I got you."
Yeah,
we need to learn to lean on that because we all need to run through the storm. So that's my takeaway on
beautiful.
It. Yeah, dude.
Beautiful.
Well, Randy, man, I want to have you back. Like, love to have you back on. Maybe in a couple weeks. We kind of talked about this. I think you and Darren Waller have a very similar story, and I think you two could rap about it. Me and Nick could go sit on the floor and watch you two talk.
That'd be cool, man.
I think it'd be
jersey
amazing.
Signed too.
Yeah, for sure. Because seriously, it's like the two of you are kind of sitting at that apex of what people idolize. Like special ops, firefighter, and pro ball, professional football player. I mean, like that's and both had a similar struggle. Like listening to your story sounded an awful lot like his, and I feel like the two of you could rap about like what worked, what continues to help you to this day, and I'd like to maybe a couple weeks try to set that up. I'd love to have you back, man. I could listen to you talk all day, man.
I could do it.
Yeah,
I could do it. I want to say something before you guys wrap it up. To my fire department brothers and sisters, man, thank you guys. For all the people that reached out. I've had more support than I could have ever asked for, through this time, and our community is still special to me. It's still beautiful. And I wouldn't have made it through without that, So,
like I said, man, you're well respected and loved, and I think this gives everybody a little closure because now they see you in a good spot and doing well and happy and killing it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So a bunch. Bravo One Defense, check it out.
Yeah, well, I'll put the link in the YouTube, and we'll get everybody
cool.
informed of what's going on.
Awesome,
cool.
Yeah, because when you guys blow up, I want to make sure it's on there.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We'll see you next episode.
Bye.